Good morning, students. Welcome back to the next session of compiler constructions. Today we are going to start a new unit, that is unit 2. Well, in the last unit we have discussed the basics on compiler constructions. We have seen how the phases of compiler will be taken, and we have seen the first phase of compiler, that is scanner. Now we are going to see the next phase of compiler, that is how the parsing process. Okay, the parser. So in this one, the first chapter of Unit 2 will be completely on context-free grammars and the concepts which are related with process of parsing. Okay, so in that one there are many subtopics. Like, we want to know first that what is parsing process. Apart from that, why there is a need of context-free grammar if already regular expression is there. So we need to know what is a context-free grammar, and along with that, what is the need of context-free grammar, how this context-free grammar is more superior than regular expressions. Okay, with an example we're going to see the need of context-free grammars in for performing the process of parsing. Along with that, there are the other concepts are related with parse trees. So this parse trees is how, what do you mean by parse trees? Okay, how can you derive a parse tree for the given grammar? Apart from that, we'll also see abstract syntax tree. Okay, after that we will be seeing EBNF. Okay, this is also one type of the process by which how the parsing performs. Along with that, we will be discussing syntax tree, and we will be discussing the properties of CFL. So all of these topics are the subtopics which are being considered as as a part of your chapter 1, which is context-free grammars and parsings. So well, today we are going to see the first topic of this. What is that? Parsing process. Now, parsing process, as everyone knows, how the compiler will perform. Initially, what happens whenever a compiler compiles any source of code? I mean, you have given an input to compiler as the lines of codes. So this lines of codes will be taken as an input, and what is the role of scanner? The scanner will convert them into a set of tokens. Okay, a group of tokens, valid tokens here. So these tokens will be acts as an input for parser, and this, using the set of tokens, it will going to be give you as a parse tree. So now the same thing here we are going to see that the parsing process is how actually it is a task, right? What is this? It is a task. So it is the task, like what is that? So if you refer the first point, you will get to know that it is how a set of tasks, or it is a task of parser. What is the task of parser is to determine the syntactic structure. Because now the thing is that this parser, okay, will give you as parse tree. Parse tree means as a syntax tree. Okay, that means the syntax part of the programming language, I mean the syntax part of your lines of codes, will be taken into consideration with the help of syntax tree. That means the syntax tree, or you can also term as syntactic structure of any program, because what you are giving input to what? You are giving input to compiler as a program. So program contains a set of lines of codes. So now what is the task is, for the given program, it has to analyze a syntactic structure of a program. So what is this? This is very important point here. What is that? That it will be going to take, it will going to be give as syntactic structure of a program. Okay. What will be the input for that? The input will be the tokens, whatever it has been produced by the scanner. Okay, because the first phase of compiler is your scanner, so scanner will give you a set of tokens. So this tokens will be taken as an input for performing the parsing process. Okay, and it can be either explicitly or implicitly. It has to construct, the main thing is what we need to construct as parse tree. Okay, which is also called as syntax tree. Okay, if anyone says you is a parse or syntax, one and the same thing. So what it represents? It represents the structure of a program. What structure it represents? Syntactic structure. What is that? The main point here is that it represents the syntactic structure of a program. Now what is this here is that parser, as I said, you can make as a function, right? And that function you can take each function, whenever you call this function, whenever you call a function of parser, so it takes the input as a token from what, from scanner, and the given tokens, with the help of these given tokens, it will going to be get generated as syntax tree. So that's the main process. If you refer this point, you will get to know sequence of tokens. And remember, the tokens are should be in a sequence of tokens so that you will get a valid syntax tree. Okay, that means a proper format, a proper notation, a proper arrangement has to be taken while taking the tokens into consideration as part of the input of parser process. So finally what it will give you as, it will give you as parse trees. With the help of parsing process, it will give you as parse trees or syntax tree. And now here what we are going to happen is the sequence of tokens. As I said, the sequence of tokens is not an explicit input parameter. It means that is not an explicit input parameter. That means, like, it is not something that explicitly you are giving the parameter, you are passing the parameter so that the sequence of token has to be maintained. How it will be taken? The sequence will be maintained by parser calls. I mean, like, what happened here is, so for example here some set of tokens are there. Okay, so this tokens will be, should be in a sequential way. Okay, so we are not passing any parameters. Why? Because I said that parsing process, like if I take using a function, that means function I can pass parameters, right? So I cannot I'm not passing any parameters, so that the sequence has to be maintained. The sequence will be maintained by calling the parse function. Okay, here what we are going is that you are getting what, parse tree. That means the function parse will be called and whenever it will call, it will give you a set of token. I mean, it will give you a token. So as and whenever you are calling this parse function, it will give you a token. So that's why this parse function will maintain the order here. Okay, it will what, it will maintain the order. That's why what happened is that the next token will be determined. For example, one token if you have taken, in order to fetch the next token, what we are using the procedure called as get token. Okay, by using the process of get token, it will fetch the next token from the input. For example, your input contains set of tokens, let us assume 5 tokens. Now what happens is that first token has been taken. In order to go for the next token, second token, get token will be useful in order to get the second token. Similarly, the order will be maintained as like as the tokens has to be taken. So from the input means here, because what is the input? A set of token is an input for what? Parsing process. So in this way, the next tokens will be taken by the help of get token, and this next token will be taken in the function parse function. Okay, so that's why what happened is that it means that simply I can say that in order to get the syntax tree, or in order to get the parse tree, what I should call? I should call parse function. Okay, I should call parser, and parser can be called by this parse function. So with the help of this function, I can get what? Syntax tree. Okay, there is one problem in parsing process. The problem is, like here, actually it is somewhat difficult when you compare with the scanner process. For example, if you have a line of tokens, if you have a line of codes are there, what is the role of scanner? Now for example, like this is scanner and this is my parser R. Okay, let's just assume I'm taking as parser only. So now this is parser. Now here we are giving input as a set of we are giving input as a set group of lines of codes. Now this scanner will give you tokens. Okay, for example, in the given lines of codes, if there is any error while making them into a group of tokens. So the problem which will be there in particular uh, portion or particular place, it will be termed them as a separate term called error token. That means if anything error part or error related part will be assumed by scanner, simply it make as what? Error token. What it will make as? Error token. But the problem lies in parser. Why? Because with the help of parser, you are going to get syntax tree or parse tree, right? So this syntax tree, what happens is that, as you know, if it contains error token, then it will be very difficult for the parser to generate a syntax tree, because this syntax tree is a syntactic form of syntactic form of program, right? Okay. So in order to get the syntactic form here, it will be very difficult for parser. But here in scanner it is becoming easy. So what is the role of parser now here is that, so in the scanner, just now I said that if the character is encountered that cannot be a legal token, just assume that it is not a legal token. Simply it may put as in a category of error token, which I just now said you, right? Okay. But what happens to the parser? Why the problem is more on parser side? Because parser must not only report an error message. First thing is that it has to report that it is an error message. Apart from reporting that it is an error message, it has to recover from that error. Okay, two things has to be done by parser. What is that? What the work it has to done? First work. What is the first work is? Reporting an error and solving an error or rectifying an error. Okay, I mean recovering an error, or you can say solving an error. Okay, it has to recover from that error, and after recovering also it has to continue the parsing process. So that's why you can term that, sometimes you can term that parser may perform error repair as well. Why it is sometimes? Because if there are any errors, apart from reporting that it is an error, it has to repair the error, right? So that's why parser may also perform error repair, in which what happens, a possible corrected code should be represented. Okay, from the given incorrected code, it has to get the corrected code, it has to infer, it has to get the possible correct. I am not saying that the exactly 100% that the code which is corrected one is correct, but it should be the possible corrected code. Based on the type of error, it has to decide that which corrected code has to be chosen for the given incorrect code. So this is the role of parser or the parsing process, and which cannot be did by scanner, because scanner simply gives what? Simply creates an token and another token which is called as error token. Okay. So in that way this parsing process will perform. So this is the basic task about the parsing process. The next thing is about context free grammars. Okay, so in context free grammars, we have already discussed regular grammar, right? What we have discussed? Regular grammar. Okay, or we have discussed regular expressions. See, there are some limitations in the regular expressions. So now what is, in order to handle such limitations which are existed by regular expression, context free grammar will be used. What it will be used? Context free grammar will be used. So now before going to that, first we need to understand the basic terminology in context free grammars. What is that here is that, if you know lexical analyzer, the first phase, what it has to done, it has to identify the tokens with the help of regular expression. That means regular expression is the part of, actually is a part of scanner. Okay, regular expression is the part of scanner. So what happen is that using that regular expression, lexical analyzer has to identify the tokens. Also it has to get the pattern rules. But what happens is that lexical analyzer cannot check the syntax of a given sentence. Okay, what is the limitation of just now I said that there is a limitation in regular expression that cannot be handled by regular expression itself. So because of that, context free grammar will be used here. So now what happens is that lexical analyzer, as you know it, what is the role of lexical analyzer or scanner? Don't get confused, because if I'm saying lexical analyzer, it means that it is scanner only. So if a lexical analyzer, if I'm taking, it cannot check the syntax, because that's not the role of lexical analyzer. Lexical analyzer role is just to have a set of tokens. So anyhow, it won't check the syntax of any given sentence. What? Because of limitations of regular expressions. Okay, because regular expressions cannot handle such things. So because of that limitations which is there in regular expressions, that cannot check the syntax of the given sentence. Now, regular expression also, what happens is that regular expression cannot check balancing tokens also. Balancing tokens means like parenthesis. If if I'm taking opening loop, opening braces, I have to close it, so that has to balance that, right? So such parentheses, okay, you can call as balancing tokens. So this regular expression will not check such kind of tokens. Okay. Also, therefore, this phrase is used context-free grammar. So because of this having this limitation, such as it cannot check balancing tokens, such as it cannot check the syntax of any given sentence. So because of that, we are using context-free grammar. Okay, who has recognized this context-free grammar? Push down automata. Again, this is a part of automata theory, because it is how something related with this one. Now, if you know the types of grammars, you will be know that there are four types of grammars, like type 0, type 1, type 2 and type 3 grammars. And now in that, context free grammar is type 2 grammar. What is this context free grammar is? A type 2 grammar. Now, what is context free grammars? Okay, context free grammar is, as you know, it is how formal grammar, but there is a one condition here. You know the production rules, right, which we have studied, I guess. Okay, so in that production rules, and you have already studied this part in your automata theory. Okay, I mean you are studying ALC, so just recollect those concepts. What is that here is that in every production rule is the form, so the production rule should be it should be in the same form. What will be the form of this? It will be in this form. Now, what is this A represents for? Non-terminal symbol. What is this A represents for? Non-terminal symbol. And alpha represents for string of terminals. See, alpha can be empty, or empty means it doesn't have any value. Simply if I take epsilon, then also it is okay. So that further there won't be any value. So that means the right hand side part can be an empty one, or else it can be, I mean like it can be a terminal, or it can be a non-terminal as well. So this alpha will be in that way, and in the left hand side you will find only single term. Okay, a left hand side you will find only single term, and that to single term will always be a non-terminal symbol. Okay, so this will be a non-terminal symbol, but right hand side it can be a single one, it can be an empty one, it can be a group one, it can be a terminal symbol, it can be a non-terminal symbol, or simply it can be an empty one. So in that way, if I'm taking the set of production rules, then I can say that the given production rules can satisfy the property of context free grammar. Okay, so that's why this is how the thing here now. So formal grammar, like here this is also a context free grammar, is also formal grammar. When it is when it is considered as context free, when the production rules can be applied regardless of the context of non-terminal, whatever the non-terminal it will be. If I'm using non-terminal in my production rules, then I can say that the given is an context free, no matter which symbols around it. I mean like What is that? Along with non-terminal, you can have any other symbol, you can have terminal symbol, but all is that it will be contained at the right hand side only, and only in the left hand side. The main important point is the left hand side, it only contains single non-terminal. Okay, what it contains as single non-terminal. So this is how the property of context free grammar. And at the right hand side, it will be a group of terminals, non-terminals are an empty value. Okay. So in this way, context free grammars will be represented. Now if you compare context free grammar and regular grammar, I mean regular grammar means regular expressions if you say. So if you observe this Venn diagram, what you will come to know that context free grammar is a superset of regular grammar, or else you can also call as regular grammar is a subset of context free grammar. What it implies by the given diagram? It implies that every regular grammar is context free grammar, but every regular grammar is context free grammar, but all context free grammar will not be a regular grammar. Okay, that means here this regular grammar as is the part of context free grammar, so every regular grammar is also context free grammar. But what happens is that context free grammar anyhow it is superior. So why it is superior? Because I said in regular expression there are some limitations. Okay, we have discussed those limitations, so these limitations cannot be handled by regular grammar, and those limitations can be handled by context free grammars. Okay, so that's why context free grammar will behave as like as regular grammar. Apart from that, it has a specific, I mean the specific what you functionality where regular grammar will not be where regular expression or regular grammar will not handle such kind of limitations. Okay, so in this way you can relate context free grammar along with regular grammar. Now if I want to define a context free grammar, how should I define a context free grammar? So context free grammar basically is a set of four things. Okay, so here if I consider G as what context free grammar, then I can take the set of four things. What is that? V and sigma, then what is that? P, and last is start symbol. So what do you mean by V? V means it's a set of non-terminals. I said you in production rules. First we will discuss this, okay? Then I'll give you an example of production rules. So what it contains, V means set of non-terminals. Because I said that context free grammar, right hand side, what it contains? A set of non-terminals, a set of terminals. Okay? So set of non-terminals, if I'm taking here, I can take the set of non-terminals. Okay, so that is how the part here. And this non-terminal V defines set of strings. Okay, it means it is not just specific with one a single string, because if I'm taking non-terminal, I can have multiple set of strings which supports the given grammar. So that's why non-terminals are useful. For each non-terminal can go for one particular string. If I have multiple non-terminals, then I can go for multiple set of strings. The strings are what the part which has been derived from the context free grammar. Now what is the next part? Is the second part. If I go with this is, we have seen non-terminal, this is terminal symbols. Okay, a set of tokens. Terminal symbols means you can consider a set of tokens are non-terminal symbols, and these are the basic symbols strings. That means whatever you are taking in the strings, for example, if I'm taking a string of numbers like 0 1 2 3 something numbers are there, so these numbers are actually what? Terminal symbols. Okay, it contains the value 0 1 2 3, or you can contain a b c d, so all of those we can contain in, if all if they are in a set. That's why I'm using here sigma over there. Sigma represent for set of tokens. Actually they are tokens, a form of tokens. So this will be used to form a particular strings from the given non-terminals. Now the next thing is set of productions. Okay, Productions, I have already said you that how this production will be there. It will be in the form of A, what is that here, A of alpha. So this is my production format where A is what? Non-terminal, and alpha can be empty, alpha can be terminal, alpha can be non-terminal. So that's why if I'm taking all of this, so I can have multiple productions based on the given language, because first we have to consider a language. Based on the language, we need to see what are the sets of non-terminals, what are the sets of terminal symbols, and what can be the productions over for the given language. And based on that, we need to we need to derive the strings which satisfies the given language. And the third part is this one which we am discussing is of productions. What is this? Of this is of the productions. And lastly, this start symbol will be there. Fourth part is what? Start symbol. Every time whenever you start deriving the string, you have to start with a special symbol which is called as start symbol. And remember, the start symbol will be a non-terminal. Okay, that means by this you can start the process, but you cannot end the process by this one, because it's a non-terminal and it is the start symbol as well. That means production begins from S, but it won't end by S. It has to be end by with a terminal symbol. So these are what the four things. Now what happen is that whenever you need to derive a string based on the given language, you have to start from the start symbol, just now I said you, and you have to change the non-terminal. Okay, non-terminal, you have to take multiple non-terminals you have to take, and based on the condition you have to replace with terminal symbols. Okay, so now there is one example. If you refer for example 1, what is that here, where there is a language here. Okay, using this language, and you know that this language is not a regular language, and I said you that there are some limitations in regular languages. So that limitation, because of this limitations, such limitations, this language will not be handled by regular language, I mean regular expression will not be handled by regular expression. So because of that, what we are using context free grammar. Actually, this problem is for to get palindrome, the string of palindrome numbers. Okay. So now, as you know, that our grammar contains basically 5 things. V stands for what? Non-terminal symbols. Sigma stands for terminal symbols. P stands for productions, and S stands for start symbol. Now this is my grammar. What is the next four thing here is that this is my productions. Okay, now this non-terminals, set of non-terminals contains Q, Z and N, and set of terminals, it contains two numbers, zeros and ones. That means by this we can come to know that we are forming a palindrome strings with a combination only of zeros or ones, because only two values have been given, zeros and ones. So whatever the palindrome number or the palindrome strings whichever we are generating is either of combination of zeros and ones, because we just have only two values. I mean we just have only two terminal symbols. What is the next third part is, this is my production rule. Okay, so this is my production rule. Using this production rule and using with the help of start symbol, and I said that generating the strings, deriving the strings will be started by start symbol. So I have to start with this one only, right? And I have to get this grammar, and so I have to get this some strings over here. So now we'll see how this will going to be performed. So now first we will write what the productions here. So this is my start symbol, and what are the production rules? S of qz or qn and q epsilon for empty value, and we are taking z and n. What is this? 0 q0, and we are taking n for 1 q1. Okay, so this is my set of production rules. Okay, productions. Now I have to start with the start symbol. So I'm just starting here, S of q. Now I can take, for example, if I want to start the palindrome string with 0 and I want to end with 0 only, okay, then what should I take here? I have to take this value. For taking this value I have to take z. So what should I do now? I have to go for z. Okay, then after going to z, what will happen again? From z I can go to o q o, right? If I'm just taking o o, then q is epsilon, right? So I can write s of o. I'll get this form. For example, if I don't want 0 0, for example, if I don't want that, I need to want some more other values, like what I need to get is, I want to get this one q. Okay, so if I'm taking q, there are three options here. So for example, if I want to take, what is that, 0110, okay, in that way if I'm taking here. So in order to take this one, if I'll take q as z, so z means again it will be in the form of 0000, it will be in that form of like that. I shouldn't take, right? So what I'm taking here is that I have to take n here. So q of n is there, so o n 0, then again n, what it indicates, 1 q1, 0 1 q1 0. And if I just want to take 0110, let us assume, or else if I want to take some more values, I'm just taking 0110. So how should I take? 0 0110. So I'll get in this way, right? Why? Because q is epsilon. So again I'm getting this palindrome. So in that way I can go with many other examples here. Okay, like here what they have taken here is, they have taken 1001, okay, or else you can take in this way, 11100011, or else in this way. So you can take, it's up to you. If you are starting with one, for example, if you want to start with one, if you want to start with one, so what you have to do here is that you have to start with n here. Like instead of z, you can take as s of n, and this n, what we have to take here, n means what will happen, 1 q1. Okay, and if I want to take 1001, so now what happened here is that q z I have to take, right? So s, what is that, 1 z1, and here if I want to take z, so 10 q01. So simply Q means epsilon if I'm taking, so 1 0 0 1 I'm getting, right? So in that way. So there are lots of other examples which you can take for this context free grammar. So in that way you can generate lots of strings, okay, which supports what? Palindrome. So if you observe here, you will get to know that this is how palindrome numbers. It can be, you can take either four, here we have taken with the four numbers, you can take more than that also. It means like what happens if you want to increase, you can elongate that one by taking more and more productions. So in this way, what we are taking is that we are generating what? Context-free grammars, and we are generating what? A set of palindrome numbers with the help of context-free grammars. So this is one example. There is another example, okay? In this example, what we are taking is that, and directly I'm taking here, what is that? I'm taking here V set of non-terminal. I'm just taking only S. This is set of terminals, that is 0 and 1, and P is what? The production, and S is what? The start state. Okay, if you compare with this, you will get to know that means V means set of non-terminals. So only we have just one non-terminal, that is start state. Remember, for every grammar, at least we have a one single non-terminal, that is your start state, because without start state you can't start the productions. So that's why minimum at least you require a single start state. So if you go with the production, what happens is that like this is how one production which have been given here. You can take over this one, S for 0 S1, S for epsilon. I mean, if you want to take, if you don't want to take any value, you can go with this one, or else you can go with 0 S1. Okay, now if I'm deriving, if I'm using these two productions, there are two productions here which has been given, S of 0 S1 or S of epsilon. So now what I'm doing here is that, if you, with the help of epsilon, I can simply write 0 1, right? Because 0 S1, S is nothing, no value will be there. So simply I can take 0 epsilon 1 means 0 1 only, right? So I'll get 0 1. So remember, in this one, what we are taking, we have 1 0 and 1 1. That means this context free grammar is to have, if you observe this one, 0 to the power of k into 1 to the power of k. That means equal number of zeros and ones, which cannot be handled by a regular grammar. So that's why we are taking with the help of context free grammar. And remember, k should be greater than 0 or it should be equal to 0. Okay. So what we are taking is, suppose we are taking k as 1, that means 0 to the power of 1 and k 1 to the power of 1. So we just have how many zeros? We have a single 0 and single 1. So if you have multiple combinations, then we can take like this. Like here there is another example where I have three zeros and three ones. Okay, you can also have two zeros, two ones. That means equal number of zeros and equal number of ones you can take here. So this is the first one. If I want to take for three zeros or three ones, so how am I taking 0 as 1? Again, S stands for what? 0 S1. So this is S, and what is the S part means? 0 S1. If you refer this line, S stands for 0 S1. So S means 0 S1 I am taking. Again, now for the second time, this S I am taking. Now I am taking 0 S1. So again I am taking 0 S1. So finally I got three zeros and three ones. I want to stop here, so I am using S of epsilon with the help of equation 2. So I am getting what? Three zeros, three ones. If I want to get two zeros, two ones, here only I should stop, so that I'll get double zero, double one. Here I'm getting triple zero, triple one. Okay, there I'm getting a single zero, single one. So simply what you can assume is that this grammar G, what I'm representing, this grammar G is generating the language in this way. Okay, in this equal number of zeros and equal number of ones. Okay, so in this way we are taking the context free grammar. Okay, so the next concept of which we'll be discussing in the next session, which is regarding parse trees and abstract syntax trees. Okay, so meanwhile what we have discussed today is we have discussed how the parsing process, the basic terminology which will be performed in parsing process. Also we have seen that what are the issues, what are the errors, uh, why there is much problem in parsing process compared to scanner. Okay, and also we have seen why there is a need of context free grammars. So we have seen why context free grammars are required. We have seen what are the how we can define context free grammars, and we have seen with the two examples. With the help of two examples I try to explain context free grammars. So more and more number of examples has to practice by the students in order to get you know, get a clear picture on context free grammars. Okay, so with this I conclude this class. Hope I'll take the next concept in the next class with the remaining concepts. Okay, thank you.